Okay, welcome back to the Fireburns Within channel. Let's continue with this musical journey. Part 1, I got up to Depeche Mode's Violator album in 1990. I bought that one. 7 albums I listed in part 1. Let's continue from there. Right, this is the moment where my life, my musical taste and life changed completely. I left pop music, chart music or random rocks. I left all that behind and I entered the metal world. In 1991 I must have heard Enter Sandman somewhere on the radio and I just got into it. I don't know how, but I got into it. There was also a guy who I was friends with at college. He was a full-on metalhead. He has some blame for introducing me to metal. In 1991 August, Black Album was released and I bought the cassette. Yes, and I played it. At first I was like, okay, this is a bit different, this is not me. And then I don't know, you know how it is, you get hooked, you just get hooked, and there you are, Metallica. You're playing the album over and over again. The Black Album, I literally wore that cassette out. God knows what happened to it. I think I sold it because I had a whole heap of cassettes which I sold about, I don't know, 7-8 years ago. So big exposure to heavy metal. I'm into heavy. I accept heavy music into my life, or this type of heavy music. Like, you know, obviously the heavier stuff is yet to come, but you've got to see it as a starting point, a gateway. So 1991, Metallica's Black Album. Bit later on in the same year, I heard Smells Like Teen Spirit on, I don't know where, I think it was a Saturday morning show of some description. I think we had a Saturday morning show in the UK called The Rock Show or The Rock Rundown, I can't remember. Anyway, they got to their number 1 track and they played Smells Like Teen Spirit video, and I don't know, it just hooked me. It just hooked me big time. So I went and got the album, the one with the little boy in the water chasing the dollar. You know, this one just, at first when I'm listening to it, I think from memory I'm like so on it, but I'm starting to pick up on the massive hooks the album has. It's got a lot of sort of dirty hard guitar playing, but it's also got massive hooks. Like, you just can't help but go along with the ride for Smells Like Teen Spirit. So for a while it was switching between the Black Album and Nirvana's Smells Like Teen Spirit, or a very different sounding albums, but I don't know, this was the order, so I've just got to continue with it. Right, next album that is a big milestone for me is Megadeth's Countdown to Extinction. Now Megadeth, I think I heard one song from their earlier period somewhere, I don't know where. I think I heard oh, that's it, I heard their cover of Alice Cooper's No More Mr. Nice Guy, and I thought it was quite cool, but I never really, you know, delved into Megadeth. And then I was listening to the Friday Night Rock Show with this guy called Alan Fluff Freeman. He's a DJ in England, he's dead now. He was doing the Friday Night Rock Show and he introduced this song. He said, this is a brand new song from Megadeth, Symphony of Destruction. The album's not out yet. So I'm listening to this song and I'm floored and I'm just absolutely loving it. The groove, the catchiness, the chorus, I'm just loving it. And I'm thinking, wow, Megadeth, I need to check this band. So I forgot about them for a while, but later on I saw that the album was coming out, so I grabbed the cassette again And again, this cassette was one I completely wore out. I mean, I played this one to death. This was still a classic for me to this day. I mean, you know, at first I was like, I wasn't sure about Dave Mustaine's voice, and then I don't know, you just grow to love his style even after, he's not a perfect singer, a technical singer, but for Megadeth, he's just perfect. He suits the songs down to the ground, that snarl, the crunchy riffs. And then after hearing this album, I went back and started getting into all the previous ones, Rust in Peace, Peace Sells. Not so much the debut, but So Far So Good So What as well, of course. But Megadeth Countdown to Extinction is a massive milestone for me into sort of slightly more I mean, they were still popular, but slightly more underground thrash metal or heavy metal, if you like. This is me dipping my toe, becoming more of a metalhead rather than just someone who, say, likes a Metallica album or likes a Nirvana album. Someone who just likes some music with heavy guitars. So 1993 comes along, and I discover more heavier stuff. I discover death metal. I start buying magazines, Metal Hammer. I think I bought Kerrang a bit, but not Kerrang so much. I bought Raw magazine a lot, which is now extinct. But 1993 was my year of discovering death metal, basically. I don't know exactly what the trigger was, but I just remember discovering death metal. Vocals were like, as soon as I discovered it, the vocals were always a slight problem, but I managed to easily overcome this. I can't remember exactly how, but I managed to overcome this. Now, this year, 1993, is notable for 3 albums. And they're all, I've got to mention them all for this musical journey review. So the 11th album on my list is Death's Individual Thought Patterns. This is the first Death album I ever heard or bought. I love this so much. Even though Chuck's vocals were difficult for me, I just fell in love with the music. I totally fell in love with it. I wore this cassette out like I did with a lot of my cassettes at that point. Then I went backwards and discovered some of the early albums, Human, Spiritual Healing, etc. And of course Leprosy and Scream Bloody Gore, which I wasn't a huge fan of, and to this day I'm not a huge fan of, but all the other ones I discovered. But Individual Thought Patterns is the most important album, so makes this list. The next album I think was released a little while later in the same year, 1993. It's Carcass's Heartwork. First time I heard Carcass was like a big deal in 1993. I remember seeing articles with Carcass saying like these are the next big thing in death metal and all this stuff. So when their album came out, obviously I was going to try it, and it's an absolute killer. I mean, it's so well produced, it's crunchy, it's heavy, it's melodic, it's not so death metalish in its ways. I mean, it's not constant blasting or constant gargling. I mean, the vocals are heavy and gargling, Jeff Walker, but it's not full on. It's not like Cannibal Corpse where it's constant death metal in your face. It's got some more classic heavy metal elements, so it was always stand out for me. It appealed more to me. And the final album from this year that I should mention is Cynics Focus album. This album blew me away on listening. I hadn't heard any music like this before. The combination of metal and jazz and intricate playing, bass, the vocal distortion where they use the electronic vocoder. Never heard that before. That was like, what's this? Well, this is so weird, but it's also cool at the same time. It's like this band is otherworldly. It's like, are they even humans? What are they playing here? This was the feeling that I got from Cynics Focus album. I really, really loved that album. So, okay, last thing to mention in this part two, in the 14th album. Now, this is odd because this is the chronological order slightly goes out of what do you call it, out of order here, but I have to mention this. In 1994, roughly, was the first time I really heard Iron Maiden. I'd heard Maiden songs before, but never a full album. In 1994, I bought Live After Death because I saw a lot of good reviews for it. It was a double cassette. I bought that. This is my first sort of delving into Iron Maiden, believe it or not, as an album. I'd heard songs. I heard Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter, On Top of the Pops, and I heard other songs here and there, but I never really understood or got Maiden fully. But because I was sort of into metal now and into death metal a little bit from 1993, in 94 I started to play Iron Maiden's Live After Death. Suddenly I entered the world of melodic heavy metal. This is my gateway into melodic heavy metal or power metal. I didn't know power metal then, but stuff with where the vocals are more melodic, more catchy, the riffs are catchy, melodic. So you can blame Live After Death for this movement into melodic waters, which soon captures my heart and still has to this day. So there we have it. This is the part 2. Stay tuned for part 3.